All right, next up we have Paladin, starting with Hold the Bridge. Free cost, give a minion +2/+1 and Divine Shield. It gains lifesteal until end of turn. So this is a very interesting card. +2/+1 Divine Shield is pretty powerful. Compare this to like Blessing of Kings. All right, Blessing of Kings is 4 cost and it's +4/+4, but +2/+1 Divine Shield and lifesteal this turn can be very, very powerful. Using this alongside rush minions, it can give you a ton of life and kill a big minion to help swing the game back if you do fall like behind in life. This is, I think, just the combination of effects is very, very strong. It is notably a holy spell, so Knight of Atonement does draw it, which another factor in terms of it being powerful. It is a effective tool with the squawking. Was it? I forget the squawking whatever. Squawking parrot. Squawking. I don't know. The thing that copies the spell you played on something. It's nutty with like Samuro. Right? You not only like actually it doesn't work with Samuro because it gives it Divine Shield. Never mind. I was gonna say it's good with Samuro, but it gives it Divine Shield, so it takes no damage. So I'd have to like hit 2 things with Samuro. It does not work with Samuro. A Nombo, a definite Nombo. So don't do that. Figured it out for you briefly. Took me a second. Figured it out, so you don't have to. You don't have to make that mistake. But there are lots of powerful rush minions that you can play this on. This with like. You can play this with a cost reduction off of a Cariel. You can play this on Varian. Just it does a lot of stuff. Certainly, a card that does care about you again playing a more sort of minion / board focused game. So certainly very weak in some matchups. But the fact that it does give lifesteal. Does mean that like if you are trying to like race against like burn, if your opponent isn't killing you like a single turn, that it can be pretty powerful there as well. So yeah, I think this is a pretty effective card. The fact that it is a holy spell that is drawn by Knight of Atonement is a very big deal for a lot of matchups, for a lot of decks in general. And I would be pretty surprised if this did not see pretty significant play in Paladin. Next up, we have Protect the Innocent. 5 cost, summon a 5/5 defender with taunt. If your hero was healed this turn, summon another. So yeah, this is definitely a lot of stats if you do get the secondary trigger. The fact that it's 5 cost. I'm trying to think of things that are effective for like healing you. Obviously, could work with the Hold the Bridge, right? You hold the bridge, something, attack, protect the innocent. Clearly pretty powerful. Any kind of lifesteal minion obviously can be pretty effective with this. Funny thing is, I'm actually like, I'm thinking of True Silver Champion is like even in the core set. I think it is. There is the weapon that is like, this has lifesteal, can't attack players, right? Both those work. True Silver Champion is in fact in the core set, and there's the cannot attack players lifesteal weapon. Both of which work with this, and both of which can trigger this like on curve at 5. Obviously, you need to actually be damaged. So if you're playing against an opponent who is not hitting you, neither of those actually end up working very well. But in like a minion-based matchup, if you like True Silver on 4, attack on 5, boom, double 5/5 defender, that's pretty nutty. So and this also worth noting. This is it's a spell that creates minions, so this could go into like a commencement style deck. Play more of like a big paladin type deck, and that is the sort of deck that is likely to take damage early and would be very likely to be healing up and be able to get value out of this as well. So I do think this is just from a raw rate perspective, pretty powerful. Certainly something that if you are playing against paladin that you need to keep in mind going into their 5th turn especially. Next up, we have Dun Baldar Bridge. After you summon a minion, give +2/+2. Lasts 3 turns. So obviously a very powerful card if you are playing some sort of like swarm oriented deck. Works extremely well with things that like summon Silverhand recruits. It is very expensive, right? This costs 4 upfront. So like say you play this in like works very well with Divine Shields, works very well with Silverhand recruits. You can play this into like a Righteous Protector, so you at least have like 3/3 Divine Shield on 5 mana, and then you play like Stand Against Darkness the next turn. Boom, board full of stuff that are all quite big. The fact that obviously it does last 3 turns, it does allow you to take advantage of it with sort of multiple waves of things, which is obviously one of the important elements of these style of cards. You could use this with like the summon the 5/5 defender guys if you have 9 mana, right? Or you can play this on 4 on turn 5. Boom, 2 7/7 defenders, 2 7/7 taunts. Works with like again Divine Shield, great. Rush, Lifesteal, great. Probably unlikely to be like the sort of thing that you want to play in like a big dude deck, even if you do get like that on like Lifesteals and such. But again, works with stuff like Samuro. This one actually works with Samuro rather than not working with Samuro, like the previous card. The other bridge card. You'd think that Samuro would be good with both bridges, but he's apparently only good in a particular bridge. I think it's cool, and the things that support like token style, Silver Hands, recruit style, Paladin archetypes. I think definitely something that, a place to go in the current metagame, because most of the stuff that you see right now, there's like basically Liberman hand buff and Liberman hand buff. Whereas this, I think that doesn't not really fit into any of those style of decks, other than potentially put this in like a hand buff deck. But hand buff in particular, despite the fact that it will generally play Divine Shield minions that take good advantage of this, typically you want to generally have mostly minions, so you take better advantage of your hand buff effects. So I feel like the most likely place for this is a Silver Hand recruit deck, which may not really have quite what it takes, but certainly worth experimenting with. Next up, we have Saidan the Scarlet. 2/2 rush. Whenever this minion gains attack or health, double that amount. Well, that's also good with the bridge. This is good with hand buff. This is good with actual buff. This card is just pretty sick, right? This is obviously an insanely good card with the hold the bridge. You play this, hold the bridge, gets +4/+2 Divine Shield, Lifesteal. Boom. And that's before you've had any kind of like hand buffs or anything on it. This card I think is just great. I think that this pretty obviously works very well. A variety of different Paladin types. Paladin being all about buffing, whether stuff that's in hand, in play, and fortunately this is wherever this is. So super powerful with hand buff effects, super powerful with buff on board effects, just super powerful. Certainly going to see a lot of play in a lot of decks. So we have Cavalry Horn, 5-cost 3/2 Deathrattle, from the lowest cost minion in your hand. So this is another card that I think is kind of like big Paladin. Obviously, lowest cost minion. You don't want to have cheap minions and spend 5 to put them into play off of this Cavalry Horn. But this with like in like a deck with Commencement, with previously would be like Duel, no more Duel. More tools to play like a put your big guy into play. There's some pretty good new big minions we'll get to momentarily. But things like the with Barricade, with the Defend the Innocent, Protect the Innocent, whichever it is, things like this. More ways to sort of cover your early game weaknesses against minion based decks and potentially get your big stuff into play. Next up we have Stonehearth Vindicator, 3-cost 3/1. Draw a spell that costs 3 or less. It costs 0 this turn. Kind of a weird card. Certainly because it's a cost 0 this turn, feels like you want to primarily include this with buffs. This is good with say Hand of Vidal, with Hold the Bridge, with Libram. Less good with Equality, Consecration, Libram of Hope. Though, with enough discounts, you could just Libram of Hope off of this turn. Have that reduced to 3. Worst case scenario, even in those things, though, this is just 3-cost 3/1 draw spell. So, that's not bad. You can't use this with, like, Hold the Bridge, that's 4. You can't use this with, or not Hold the Bridge, the Dunbaldar Bridge. Hold the Bridge is 3. Dunbaldar Bridge is 4. Both bridge cards in Paladin. A little confusing. So while this isn't just a generically good card draw effect for any kind of Paladin deck with control spells, as long as you do have a decent number of spells that do fall into 3 or less, it can be effective for both thinning your deck and giving you some degree of tempo alongside this. It is worth noting that this can give you a Day at the Fair. The 3-cost summon 3, make that cost 0. You play anything else, and then you can immediately corrupt it because it costs 0, and then get your 5 minions. A pretty powerful use, of that effect. You could potentially be playing like a Silver Hand recruit deck that plays that, and maybe plays Pursuit of Justice. Pursuit of Justice is I think mostly just a terrible card, but if you're getting it for 0 off of a Vindicator in that deck, and also potentially getting your Day at the Fairs. This is a one health minion, so it also works alongside the dude who gives what's +1/+2 to 1 health minions. I forget what it's called exactly. Barker, something Barker, because it's the Borker. Air Barker, I forget. Regardless, it does have synergy with some of the things that already exist in that deck, as well as potentially sort of tutoring up some of your potentially powerful cards there. So overall, I don't think this is like a shows up in every Paladin deck, but it is, I think, a solid card that will definitely find some home. Next up, we have Brasswing, a very potent card in some of these big minion Paladin decks. 8 cost 9/7. It is a dragon. At the end of your turn, deal 2 damage to all enemies. With honorable kill, restore 4 health to you. Yeah. I've seen a lot of people say, like, oh, massive power creep over Barongeddon. It's like, well, it is certainly more powerful than Barongeddon. It's also more expensive. Barongeddon costs 7, whereas this costs 8. Barongeddon is a neutral card, whereas this is a Paladin card, it's a class card. So it, as a thing that costs more than and is less available than Barongeddon, should certainly be more powerful than Barongeddon. But this is obviously just super, super good, especially against any kind of swarm-style deck. Though, also, not necessarily great elsewhere. If your opponent is not playing small minions, where you're getting the honorable kill triggers, you're just getting a 9/7 that deals 2 to your opponent, because it is all enemies, not all enemy minions, so it can actually just chip away at your opponent's life total outside of combat as well. Obviously, at its best, if you're clearing off boards of small opposing minions and healing yourself up to full. Having like kill your opponent's board Reno against a swarm style deck is obviously pretty disgustingly powerful from Brasswing. But outside of those sort of matchups, it's a pretty low impact minion, because it's not actually going to be able to, doesn't have any additional sort of survivability. It doesn't have any kind of like anything to prevent your opponent from just like killing it. It's just a big dopey dude outside of being an AoE on their tiny minions. So certainly not a great card against control, but an incredible card against any kind of swarm deck. Next up, we have Lightforged Cariel, the hero card for Paladin. Battlecry, deal 2 damage to all enemies, so Battlecry Consecration, basically. And then her hero power is a pretty sick one. Blessing of Queens, which I guess is, Queens bless the future, Kings bless the present, I don't know. Blessing of Queens, give a random minion in your hand +4/+4. So obviously extremely powerful hand buff effect. And then she also equips the 2/5 immovable object. Well, object being, boom, this weapon. That's a 7 cost weapon. This doesn't lose durability. Your hero takes half damage rounded up. So this is a really interesting card. There's a lot going on here, right? And it is not necessarily all these pieces that feel like they go together. But worth noting, the immovable object doesn't lose durability, but can be destroyed. So you can swing this as many times as you want. Doesn't lose durability, which does seem like it's weird that it is 5 durability, but I am 100% certain, well, not 100%, I'm like 99% certain that the reason the immovable object has 5 durability is to make it the opposite of the Unstoppable Force, which is the weapon that Rakara gets as part of her Battlecry, which is a 5/2 weapon. And I'm sure that it was just, hey, they're going to be opposites, because immovable force and the immovable object and Unstoppable Force. Even though this durability does not matter, like functionally it has 5 durability, but it can't lose that durability. I guess it matters with like Harrison in Wild, because it destroys it and you draw cards equal to the durability. So that's like the one place that it having durability is actually relevant, because like you can't even make it lose like incremental durability with like a Blood Silk Corsair or anything. But regardless, the Battlecry, you get to Consecration, so it's you get an AoE for small minions, and then immovable object. You now get to keep attacking for 2 into your opponent's face or into minions forever until it gets killed. You can buff this up. If the weapon gets buffed with that by like Ratchet Privateer, you just have like a 4 attack weapon that you can endlessly attack with. But I think your long-term plan is more the hero power of give a minion in your hand +4/+4. People like buff up Mr. Smite, right? You just make a massive Mr. Smite or massive other pirates. Feels like one of the best things you can be doing there. Your hero takes half damage rounded up. Is something that can actually buy you time meaningfully against like the quest decks that are looking to ignite you for tons of damage or deal tons of fatigue damage to you. The fact that the combination of that and gaining armor can put you out of range of a lot of like OTK style stuff, like Garrett Rogue, not gonna be able to kill you through the immovable object because their OTK goes to not nearly enough to do upwards of 60 to you or whatever. So this is a just I think overall really powerful combination of abilities on Cariel. I do think that if Cariel decks become popular, you will see like Rottenness Vipers showing up in decks that are looking to burst kill people. So it is unlikely that you're going to be able to rely on the immovable object. Because again, it can't lose durability, but it can be destroyed. So things that destroy the immovable object, like the Viper, like Acidic Swamp Ooze, will obviously still come in very handy if you are looking to blow someone up who is playing Lightforged Cariel. This is much more of a like, hey, I'm going to buy myself time to kill you, rather than I'm going to try and like turtle and not die. Because the Blessing of Queens, your hero power, giving minions +4/+4, as I was mentioning, buff up Mr. Smite, buff up like Bloodsail Corsair, not Bloodsail Corsair, which one am I thinking of? Bloodsail Raider. Boom. Just smash your opponent and kill them. So yeah, more than anything, I think that this is like, hey, it's a way for like a mid-range deck to more like kind of just have like a bit more end game and a bit more cool stuff going on, rather than like, oh, this is like the answer to damage-based OT. Overall, pretty cool. I do think this is probably one of the better hero powers, simply because the combination of effects, give you a lot of power across multiple different types of matchups. Battle Cry, oh, I like AoE your small minions away. Hero power, oh, I gain like, a lot of power every single turn, that can potentially contribute to me being able to like OTK you if I'm playing Mr. Smite style stuff. And then of course the weapon, which protects you against burst combos. So certainly a sweet card that I expect to see a lot of play. Next up we have Vitality Surge. 2-cost Holy Spell. Draw a minion, restore health to your hero equal to its cost. So this is pretty clearly a powerful card for the big Paladin type decks. We were discussing the weapon a couple moments ago. The Horn, obviously, you need to have a minion in your hand in order to take advantage of it. If you are playing a bunch of cheap minions, or rather just a bunch of expensive minions rather than cheap minions, you're very likely to be taking early damage. So boom, if you have a bunch of like 7, 8, 9 cost, 10 cost things in your hand, this could be a huge burst of health. Maybe you play it alongside the Protect the Innocent to heal yourself and draw a big minion, put two 5/5 taunts into play, and then play your big minion the following turn. It's a pretty powerful turn 7 into drawing, say, a turn 8. Maybe that's the big dragon. Or maybe it's this guy, Templar Captain. 8-cost, 8/8 rush. After this attacks a minion, summon a 5/5 defender with taunt. Obviously, another very, very powerful, like, big minion that you could potentially play in these sort of big spell type decks. Obviously, it's most effective against small minions or against mid-sized minions. Not great necessarily if you're just like trading it off, but if you're attacking this into say like a 2/2, or 3/3 or 4/4, whatever, and then you're getting a 5/5, their opponent needs to get through to kill the Templar Captain before it can attack again and make you more stuff. Really strong. So yeah, I think this is a very powerful way to leverage your big minion things that could potentially even sort of snowball. And yeah, overall, quite a powerful card for big Paladin. Maybe even like a thing that like tops your curve in like a mid range or hand buff type Paladin deck. Probably not, because it can't like go face when you play it. But like this is another thing that you can potentially like draw off a Varian in those decks that can be like highly impactful if you need like a little bit more oomph. That is it for Paladin. It feels like Paladin has a wide array of different sort of deck types that are supported here. I do think that the big Paladin is the one that has, I think, the most notable kind of upgrades from where it kind of previously was at. One of the really important things being the weapon, giving you another way to put big things into play quickly. But also, Protect the Innocents, I think, is a very strong card that is likely at its best in that style of deck. Because you are, again, likely to be taking early game damage and have healing sources that you can use to have that on curve, as well as being a spell that doesn't disrupt your cards like Commencement to get big things to play. No small minions for the weapon. So overall, that is kind of the deck type that I feel like is going to get the most interesting support from this set. And then, as I mentioned, Cariel, I think, is just a true like powerhouse of a card that's likely to see play across a variety of different Paladin archetypes, and likely lead to sort of more Mr. Smite style Paladin decks being played simply because of the effectiveness of getting the +4/+4 every turn and potentially be able to just blow your opponent up with pirates. All right, next up we have Priest. And first off, we have Spirit Guide, a 5-cost 5/5 taunt with Deathrattle, draw a holy spell and a shadow spell. This card's really strong. Card draw in Priest is kind of at a premium. You don't really get that much card draw, and specifically you don't really get that much like tutoring type card draw. There obviously is, there's like Shadow Visions type cards, Thrive in the Shadows, but you almost never get like things that net you multiple cards. This being a 5-cost 5/5 taunt that draws you 2 spells when it dies. Obviously it has deck building restrictions. You need to have holy spells and shadow spells in your deck, but there's a wide variety of both of those that are available. I think it's a really, really, really strong card. It's a taunt. It keeps you alive against aggressive decks. It is potentially like, it's not super fast against truly aggressive decks. It is a 5-cost 5/5, and it's not really going to be impactful against combo style decks, quest type decks. I keep saying quest decks when I specifically mean the quest decks that are the uninteractive ones, but that's because I think those are the ones that most heavily define what the metagame can really look like. But anyway, it's a Deathrattle effect, and there's a significant number of relevant Deathrattle synergies in Priest as well. So this is a super strong card that I expect to see quite a bit of play. Next up we have Bless, 2-cost holy spell, give minion +2 health, then set its attack to be equal to its health. So this is Inner Fire, Inner Flame? I don't know. But yeah, obviously there's no Divine Spirit currently in Standard, but having the ability to turn your big health minions into big attack minions is obviously pretty valuable. We've seen this sort of effect before. The ability to actually end games with Priest can be very, very effective. There always has been issues for that style of Priest deck outside of just being able to kill your opponent straight up, like we saw with Divine Spirit Inner Fire. Usually those decks were at their most powerful in the environment with things like Shadow Visions, things like Northshire, plus Circle of Healing, ways to both dig for the specific buff spells as well as to get additional cards. I feel like this isn't like, oh, well, Inner Fire's back, oh, it's going to be insane. It was like Inner Fire, when it was around and there wasn't Divine Spirit, was generally not that powerful. This is obviously a bit better because it does do something on its own, even for a minion with symmetrical stats like a 6/6 or whatever. But like you could potentially play like Frazzled Freshman turn 1, Bless it turn 2, and you just have a turn 2 6/6, right? So the fact that it does contain that buff sort of intrinsically in it does give you significantly more value in it. But there's also like a lot of efficient removal, whether it's freezes, whether it's like unstable Shadow Bolt, Shadow Blast, whatever it is in Warlock. You need to get pretty big before it's that difficult to kill for a lot of decks in the metagame, at least. I'm hesitant to think that this is going to be that good, but of course, we did see Divine Spirit Inner Fire decks be extremely powerful to the point that Divine Spirit at least got Hall of Famed. But without that, you don't have quite the same degree of power from something like this. So I'm not sure that we'll really see a resurgence of this style of Priest deck. But obviously, this could play much more of just a tempo card rather than a combo card because it does include the health buff in itself. I do think that likely the best home for this, which we may just see it played in as it is sort of the rally style Priest decks. One place this could certainly potentially see play is Sethic Veilweaver plus the what is it? Whatever the Bloodweaver is. Just as a cheap card that can target your guys, and if you just keep hitting Bless, hitting other buffs, and stacking them on any individual one of those minions to blow people up. And one of the things, frankly, that I think is actually those decks can sometimes use ways to actually end the game rather than just keep playing more stuff. And I don't think that necessarily even makes them more powerful to an extreme degree. It just actually makes them end the game faster, which obviously does make them more powerful, but frequently when they kind of go off with their million spells, powered fortitude, make another guy, okay, now you can eventually actually generate a Bless and to close out the game rather than just keep cycling through and playing a million cards every turn and just your opponent waiting for themselves to die. Next up we have Najak Hexxon, which to me sounds like someone's name. I guess Najak is a creature type or something. I don't know. I guess it is a legendary card, so it must be a person's name. But anyway, 4 cost Battle Cry, take control of an enemy minion. Deathrattle, give the minion back. So this is kind of an interesting card. You know, like if you somehow like silence this, it's just a mind control for 4 mana. If you just kill them with the thing before this dies, it is a mind control for 4 mana because they never died. They never got it back. A very, very powerful tempo tool in any kind of aggressive deck against a minion based deck. You just steal your opponent's big taunt and smash them. Certainly a card that you would probably not want to face 2 of. So probably a good thing that is a legendary. But yeah, being able to it's a mind control that you can raise dead, that you can get with insight out of your deck. Certainly a powerful card if there's big dudes and you're trying to get through them and end the game quickly. So Tempo Priest, let's go. Next up we have Luminous Geode. I miss Mana Geode. Mana Geode was the 2/3 that if you healed it, you summoned a new Mana Geode. This is another Geode that cares about healing, but not healing it. It cares about any friendly minion being healed. That friendly minion, it's give it +2 attack. So any friendly minion you heal it, that friendly minion gets +2 attack. This is certainly something that makes Holy Nova appealing. Holy Nova's been real out of favor. But yeah, this could potentially be like a Tempo Priest style card. You could use this alongside like Power Word Feast. I'm trying to think of like other like AoE heal type stuff that can heal a bunch of things. Things need to be damaged for this to work. You can't like use this with like Wild Pyromancer Circle of Healing or anything anymore and just blow people up. But yeah, this seems like a tough card to make work. It seems cool. It seems like it could be powerful, but it seems difficult to make work because you need your minions to be damaged. Then you need to heal them. Then they get plus attack, and then you need not to like just get killed. Maybe you like with like Light Shower. You trade your Light Shower, but it's still only like heal. It's not like you get more than like +2 attack off of it for each individual thing, and they had to already be damaged. But yeah, I do feel like maybe this is looking to help support like a tempo type priest like Bless. You're playing like Frazzled Freshman and this, and just a bunch of like high health stuff and ways to heal your guys. Like there's no like outside of Holy Nova, I can't think of like AoE heal type stuff because there's no more Prayer of Healing. Obviously there's the Light Shower Elemental, but I'm thinking like cheaper stuff that you can that you don't need to rely on your opponent to trigger. You can use this with like Light Steed. Everything you heal everything. It gets. How does it work? How would this work with Light Steed? Because Light Steed, if something would be healed, it gains health. Does this work with Light Steed so you can like buff everything? Will it get attack and health when you heal it? If it goes like over its normal health total? I don't know. Let's think about it and continue. There's a new AoE. This one! Haha! Gift of the Naru. Gift of the Naru. Restore 3 health to all characters. If any are still damaged, draw a card. If you get all your guys damaged and Gift of the Naru, there's your AoE heal for you. And it's actually an AoE heal that you can trigger off your opponent being damaged. Because it is 3 health to all characters. And that's includes you and your opponent. So you can get card draw as you heal your opponent up when you're trying to kill them. This seems like a pretty powerful card. Like restoring 3 health to everything, potentially for 1 mana and essentially free, whether it's healing you, whether it's healing your opponent, your opponent's minions, your minions. I think assuming you're not trying to like race your opponent down, and if you are trying to like kind of race your opponent down, but you're doing so by like buffing up your minions and then using this to continue to buff your minions. Boom! Just cycle through your deck and keep doing it. The new Circle of Healing, but with Northshire, except it only draws a single card. Next up, we have Undying Disciple. 6 cost 3/7 taunt. If Deathrattle deal damage equal to this minion's attack to all enemy minions. So one thing I do want to point out, I really like the fact that these good like Deathrattle priest cards have taunt. Because there's so many like priest Deathrattles in the past that have just turned out to be like trash because your opponent just wouldn't kill them. Like Chrono Breaker, right? The like priest dragon that AoE'd if it Deathrattle, it's like, okay, I just won't kill it. 5 health, you can't even attack any of my guys and kill it. 3/7 taunt, Deathrattle, deal damage equal to attack to all enemy minions. That's gonna be frequently 3 damage usually. More maybe if you buff it. And that's pretty powerful. AoEing your opponent's board for 3 on a taunt. Difficult for them to get through with any kind of swarm. Powerful. Like this is enough damage that it kills a board that of 2/2s that has been buffed with Arbor up. But yeah, overall I think just very, very solid card. There's a number of decent Deathrattle support cards, including the hero card that we're gonna look at right now. Zyrella the Devout. with Battlecry, trigger the Deathrattle of every friendly minion that died this game. And worth noting that if it does trigger that Deathrattle deal damage equal to its attack, it looks at the attack that the minion has normally. So even if the minion is not in play, it will see, hey, I will deal 3 damage because that's my stats. That is what I do. And her hero power alternates between Void Spike and Unholy Touch. So each turn, she either heals 5 or deals 5. And I like this as a design because it is a priest hero power that doesn't just like combo off and end the game. Like, you know, it's not like a Shadow Reaper Anduin that you just like, you know, your hero power is now, oh, you're a combo deck and you nuke them to death. But it is also not a hero power that's like, oh, well, the game is now just gonna last forever and I'm gonna grind you out. That you fundamentally end the game through the use of your hero power by shooting them every other turn, but you're not just like nuking them down. And I you know, there's been some discussion over some of the comments from the Team 5 about how they don't like there to be like no win condition control type decks. And a lot of people have taken that to mean that they don't want there to be control decks, which is not what they mean. What that sort of statement of like, oh, we want to move away from these like, you know, just like pure grind control decks is that you don't want the win condition being your opponent just like draws all their cards and dies to fatigue or like basically gives up because they're out of stuff. You want it to be, hey, you are doing things actively that end the game. And sometimes that's, you know, hey, you're summoning a board full of gigantic monsters as priest, or, you know, completing a quest, and hopefully it's actually, you know, not a miserable one. You know, you are void spiking them a bunch of times. So I really like this direction for priest of both leaning into the shadow holy kind of dichotomy of the class in general, and also, hey, this actually ends the game. It's not just like, I'm going to sit here and be miserable as you just heal yourself every single turn. I can't possibly kill you. And you like incidentally win because you shuffled 3 cards into your deck. I am still pretty doubtful, by the way, that despite the fact that this is a win condition, that it is remotely good enough to beat the quest decks, because those are better win conditions that are uninteractable. So I do like this, you know, like the direction that they go with this. But I don't think it is likely to be effective in the metagame if there are, you know, the Warlock and Priest deck, Warlock and Mage quests still with any level of meaningful popularity. Next up, we have Shadow Word Devour. Choose a minion, it steals 1 health from all other minions. So this is obviously a potential powerful combo with Bless. You know, if there's like a big board, you could go like Shadow Word Devour this, Bless it, boom, kill you. It's good against like swarms. You know, say you're playing like Buff Priest, you're playing like Face Hunter or Wolpertingers. You're like, I play a guy, Shadow Word Discover it, or Shadow Word Devour it, kill them all. Or like I like Light Spawn, Shadow Word Devour. Kill your guys, my Light Spawn just naturally gets huge. I find this very unlikely to be like a card that sees meaningful play because, well, it's a very, very narrow thing. You need to have a minion. You have to do a bunch of other minions in play. In particular, a bunch of other minions that you meaningfully steal health from. So I find it much more likely that either this is a like narrow metagame call against swarm decks, or that it is a card that comes up off of Discover effect. Next up, we have Deliverance. This is a 3-cost holy spell. Deal 3 to a minion. Honorable kill. Summon a new 3/3 copy of it. This is a cool card. You know, there's lots of things that, you know, you can 3 damage copy like a thing with a Deathrattle, a thing with, you know, a passive effect. Obviously, getting a 3/3 copy of like just it's like a big minion, not super exciting. But, you know, you could even Deliverance your own guys. You know, like I think that this is likely to be at its best in a metagame where A, you know, there are just things that you can kill with this, and B, you have things in your deck that are valuable to kill with this yourself. There's no like 3/3 or X3 with like a really powerful Deathrattle that like I can think of off the top of my head. It is a little odd that you can honorable kill your own minions, which again does not feel super honorable. But it could be a very effective way to use this. You know, you Deliverance like your own, I don't know, Light Shower Elemental, your own like Moarg Forge Fiend, or your own Cairn. You know, any number of like Deathrattle. So I can't think of any specific 3/3s or X3s that I want to use it on. But yeah, it's half the cost of Initiation. Obviously, it is not as reliable as Initiation, but like you do like 6 damage to your opponent's like Rattlegore, and boom, Deliverance it. And if you do that, you summon a 3/3 copy of a 9/9 Rattlegore. which is particularly weird with how Rattlegore works. But if you use this, you'll get a copy of the original, like the card Rattlegore is programmed as, I'm a 9/9, and I'm a 9/9 who makes an 8/8. And if you Deliverance the 3 health version of that, you'll get a 3/3 version of a 9/9 who will make an 8/8, which seems strange considering how the card is written, but that's how it's coded. Some people in chat are saying honorable is opponent only. That might be true, in which case I'm wrong about a lot of things, but we'll find out. But yeah, overall, I do think this is a pretty powerful card. Obviously, pretty metagame dependent. I expect at least initially we're only going to see this mostly off of Discover effects until like a metagame settles, and we maybe see if this has a lot of good natural targets. All right, next up we have Storm Pike Aid Station. The end of turn, give your minions +2 health, lasts 3 turns. This is the sort of card that I wish would be good in Priest, but I find it unlikely that it will be. Because you need to have minions in play that are worth keeping around and spending, resources to buff your stuff on. You're going to need multiple minions for this to really be worth, right? Because, give a minion +2 health, pretty bad. Give, 2 minions +2 health, okay, that starts to get good. If you have, 3 minions, okay, that's really good. But, is it, though? Because it's giving 3 minions +2 health into your opponent's, 4th or 5th turn, it feels like it's pretty difficult, right? It feels like it's best used on things that, are difficult if you wanted to kill anyway. You really want to just, kind of protect. I could see this being good with, watch posts, right? Where they're just really annoying, or if they stick around, and your opponent is going to really struggle to kill them. But the problem with obviously far watch post is just naturally annoying and disruptive. Crossroads watch post is only good if you also both are minions. Maybe play this into a Crossroads watch post into an Ogremancer, and then suddenly you have a really, really, really annoying board to kill because your opponent can't kill your 9 health Ogre and your Crossroads watch. But yeah. It seems like a difficult card to really make work. You need to have multiple minions in play, which again, very much a Crossroads Watchpost style of Priest. Maybe you would play this in it is a 3 for Quest Priest. I want to play Quest Priest, which with the Crossroads Watchpost style of build. But that also just, if you play that, you want to have a bunch of minions, so you don't really want to have this. So I don't know. Seems fairly difficult to make work. Maybe you play this stealth minions. And you just sit there and buff them and wait to bless them and kill them. That's an option. It's kind of like a way to pretend you're a Shade of Naxxramas. I don't know. Seems difficult to pull off. That's the story of Priest, right? The story of Priest is very often difficult to pull off. That is Priest. Those are all the Priest cards we got. I do feel like there's some kind of attempts at buff proactive type Priest. As I said, I do always find those to be pretty challenging. Bless is obviously a potential new win condition for those sort of buff tempo style priest decks. The stuff I'm probably the most excited about, I do think that the Spirit Guide, Zyrella, and the Deathrattle AoE all seem pretty strong. Specifically, as I mentioned, having these Deathrattle triggers that are actually on taunt minions and not things you need to get killed yourself. Does mean that you're likely to get those off against a lot of decks, rather than them just ignoring them and hitting you in the face. So the card draw, the AoE, and then of course Zyrella with the Deathrattle battle cry, as well as the swapping hero power to just actually end the game, keep yourself alive, sustain, seems pretty strong. So Deathrattle Priest is, right now we're seeing Deathrattle Priest as mostly hey, we want to Amulet Undying and just bring back gigantic things. It's possible that's still a better direction because you just kind of naturally win and have a massive advantage in the matchups where you can actually do your thing. But maybe adding these additional forms of Deathrattles and Zyrella can give you kind of just some alternate ways to play the game out against other styles of deck. Yeah, hard to pull off. That's Priest. Next up, we have Rogue, and Rogue has actually been my least played class for quite a while now, and I think that's going to change. Here we have Seraphine Fleet Runner. Battlecry, replace your minions in hand and deck with ones from other classes. They cost 2 less. This isn't Tess. This is very Tess-like. I'm curious. I assume that this replaces them with random ones, and then the random ones that you get all cost 2 less. Not replace them with ones that cost 2 less. That'd be really weird. Or replace them with ones of the same cost and then they cost 2 less. I just assume that, like I said, that they would be just totally random ones that then cost 2 less. This is interesting. It doesn't work with Tess. You can't play this in wild with Tess because it's going to replace your Tess. Tess, of course, for those who may be newer to the channel, one of my absolute favorite cards in Hearthstone of all time. And this is kind of doing the opposite, right? Like this is like, okay, you play a bunch of minions, and now I guess not really the opposite, but you play a bunch of minions, and now you get a bunch new minions from other classes from this, and you keep your spells, which gives you the ability to continue to have like interaction from your spells. And some of those spells are pretty awesome in terms of the way that they interact with her, like this one, Contraband Stash. 5 cost, replay 5 cards from other classes you've played this game. This is obviously very powerful with Sethrathine, or whatever her name was, in terms of getting you a bunch of minions that you may have played off of those other cards. One of the big issues that these the Thief Rogue style decks typically do have is tempo, right? Because you're playing things that give you stuff from outside the game, or from other classes. Then you just play the thing that costs from other classes. But having once you play her and all your things cost, all the things you generate cost 2 less. Then this giving you 5 of them for 1 card, as long as you get at least decent things, which again can be a big ask. You get pretty powerful tempo plays with this, and this specifically being a spell does not get replaced, so you do still have that value available to you. But there are other things that give you some tempo value here. This isn't really so much tempo, but Lobotomizer, a 2-cost 2/2 with honorable kill, get a copy of the top card of your opponent's deck. This can dig up more cards from other classes to help support that strategy here. You can also just play this, in like a lot of any kind of sort of rogue deck. Doesn't necessarily have to be a rogue deck that specifically cares about off-class cards or the Burgle type effect, because it can just give you a little bit of incremental advantage from a 2/2 weapon for 2, which is totally reasonable. There are a decent number of just like 2/2s. In the format that you might be able to kill. But actually not that many. You can kill like a field contact, you can kill like a battle guard if you can get there. Effectively getting, a free card from the honorable kill does make the Lobotomizer pretty powerful. And maybe you can play you play poisons to help buff it and kill other stuff, but it doesn't necessarily seem like the sort of weapon you'd play in a poison deck when there's so many other opportunities. We have Cold Tooth Yeti, 3-cost 1/5, combo gain plus 3 attack. You can combo into a Chillwind Yeti. Get it. But yeah, you can use this with backstab, you can use this with cheap stuff, other cheap stuff. I mean, this is just like as an aggro rogue card, right? Even if you're not like, you're even on like, just coining this out, you have a 4/5 on turn 2. It's kind of a lot, right? It's kind of a big fella. So I do think that while this kind of is meme worthy as like, hey, you end up spending 1 mana to combo, and then you effectively spend 4 for the Chillwind Yeti. The fact that you can get it out, with a backstab on 3 or the coin on 2 is kind of sick. You can just Foxy fraud it into play. Get them. Next up, we have Snowfall Graveyard. 3-cost. Your Deathrattles trigger twice. Last 3 turns. We haven't really seen that much Deathrattle synergy for Rogue lately. There is the weapon, and there is, I'm blanking on what it's called. The draw a Deathrattle, or draw a minion triggers Deathrattle. Draw a Deathrattle minion. Deathrattle. You can play like this into that, and there's in particular one of the cards in this set. There is Korok the Rager, the 4-cost 3/3 that only dies if it's honorable kills. If you had like Snowfall Graveyard on 3, sketchy information into Korok, you'd get 2 Koroks into play because they were not honorable killed. Their Deathrattle was triggered, and then your opponent would have to keep trying to kill all of them. You'd be able to get those killed and you get more Koroks. You just get a board full of Koroks. And then your opponent's just going to Hellfire and you lose them all. But it would be cool. But yeah, this is like a Baron Rivendare, right? That your opponent can't just kill and doesn't take up board space. So there's definitely some potential here for sure. Even outside of memes. Next up we have Wild Paw Knoll, speaking of tempo cards for the Burgle type decks. Costs 1 less for each card you've added to your hand from another class. So there aren't that many Burgle type cards that I can think of in the current environment, which is one of the reasons that I haven't really been playing that much Rogue, because there's not that many Burgle cards, there's not that many payoffs. But one of the things that has the Burgle cards that you potentially work with this use like the Burgle plus secrets. Whether you're burgling with Shadowcaster. It's not Shadowcaster. I forget the name of it. Shadow Jeweler. That's what it is. Shadow Jeweler. But yeah, Shadow Jeweler with keep generating secrets, make that card cost like nothing, You can use this with like one thief. Is a cheap way to get this online. Obviously, if you can like actually get honorable kills off of lobotomizer, it's kind of a lot to ask though. You're really doing a lot of work to just get a 4/5 rush, which is not that impressive. This is an impressive one though. Double agent. Battle cry, if you're holding a card for another class, summon a copy of this. So 2 3/3s for 3 is a very powerful tempo tool, right? So this is a good payoff for actually having a early game burgle effect. So this is the sort of thing that I think is important. As I was mentioning, like one of the things that is a big cost of, hey, I'm going to spend my mana on things that generate things from other classes. You need to have major payoffs. There's previously stuff like Vendetta. There is stuff like I wonder how would this work with Maestra, with the disguise. Like if this was the first card you played, does Maestra see it? I think Maestra would see it first, and you wouldn't get the battle cry. Maestra would turn into you, or would it not work? Would the battle cry happen, and then Maestra sees that you turned into something? You played a rogue card, and you turn back. I'm not 100% sure how that would work. And would Maestra automatically work and trigger the rush guy? Because the rush guy, let's take a look at that. So the rush guy is for each card you've added to your hand from another class. And this is like this game, not each card that is in your hand from the class. So does Wild Paw Knoll automatically work if you have Maestra? Like automatically. Assuming you've does this count as a card like by itself that you've added from outside the game? Because like it's not if you have it in your hand. Does drawing a rogue card if you are Maestra, just at the beginning of the game, count as adding a card from another class to your hand for Wild Paw Knoll if you just switch out? I don't know. I'm curious, but I don't know. So that is something you experiment with. Does our Burgle deck want to play Wild Paw Knoll? And in that case, if we Maestra, or does it want to play Maestra rather? If we have Maestra and we play this, oh no, this is always... Yeah, if we Maestra and we play this could turn our stuff into rogue cards if this is our first card we play. Regardless, there's a lot of weird stuff going on, and that's the kind of rogue stuff that I find fun. So I don't want to play rogue combo. I don't want to play, SI rogue. I want to play sweet rogue cards, and there's a lot of sweet rogue cards in this set. There's this one, for instance. 2 cost, discover a Deathrattle minion from another class. It costs 2 less. So this is kind of a crossover between, hey, you want to be a Deathrattle deck, and you want to be a card for another class deck. This can curve directly into Double Agent. It works with the Knoll. It works as a Deathrattle support card. Kind of a glue card for both those types of strategies. If I'm being perfectly honest, I find it very unlikely that any of these, or this is kind of cool, but I find it pretty unlikely that the Deathrattle or Steel stuff will be remotely competitive compared to the Quest Rogue stuff or the like Octobot field contact style decks. Those just seem like they're just so much better because they just get to play a bunch of cheap stuff instead of a bunch of clunky expensive stuff and random stuff. But they're cool. These cards are cooler. And lastly, speaking of cards that might actually see some play, we have Shadowcrafter Scabs. Shadowcrafter Scabs, Battlecry, return all minions to their owner's hand. Summon 2 4/2 shadows with stealth. What Scabs actually does is effectively play Vanish. His Battlecry is Vanish, and put 2 4/2 stealth into play, and his hero power is your next card this turn costs 2 less. So this is a very, very, very powerful like tempo rogue-ish tool. Obviously with the Battlecry, internal minions to their owner's hand, summon 2 shadows with stealth. Very powerful with, I think in particular, the rogue quest cards, because there's so many powerful Battlecry type stuff in the rogue quest deck. One of the things that the rogue quest deck already kind of had was it's very good at dealing with like individual things. It has the distractor or whatever, the sap plus bounce. It has now it has a hero power that your next thing costs less, so you can like bounce everything. Hero power, play something else that can like put even more pressure on. This is just an extremely powerful tempo tool, and it is extremely powerful tempo tool in a class that is very tempo oriented and has a powerful tempo deck in Quest already. There's a tempo deck that has a bunch of Battlecry things that can give you additional advantages by replaying them. This, I think, is very, very strong. It's a deck that already wants to play Battlemaster to get your Wind Fury on your Scabs, and then Battlemaster is good with the Stealth Shadows. So Yeah, I think this is just a super, super, super strong card. In particular, like I said, it goes exceptionally well into the existing Quest Rogue deck. A lot of potential opportunity for effectiveness in any kind of tempo based rogue deck. I don't think this is likely to see play in some of the combo decks, but maybe that's wrong because it's just, you know, in the any metagame where like your opponent is playing out stuff that can stop you, like the vanish effect is pretty powerful. It is kind of, you know, it's a clunky thing if you're looking to play like a field contact type deck, but sleight of hand giving you effectively 2 extra mana, you know, the you can hero power into your cost, you know, your discount stuff more easily, have bigger combo chains because you effectively get two additional mana on your turns. Just seems like it, you know, and you get the stealth guys your opponent has to deal with, or else your combo thresholds are lower. Just seems good. So this card is great. It is definitely one of the better hero cards. I think perhaps the best hero card. Maybe, you know, maybe not because it's just like maybe not the best because, you know, the rogue decks that are at least currently the best. Although Quest Rogue is very, very good. Can't necessarily leverage it as well as some of the other ones in some of the other classes, but I do expect this to see lots and lots of play. But that's Rogue, and I do think that the hero card is the obvious standout in Rogue. The other cards all sort of support archetypes that I feel like are not really that likely to be that competitive. I do think that some of the Deathrattle stuff maybe is good. But I think it's hard for a lot of this rogue stuff to compete with a lot of the rogue stuff that already exists in the form of, you know, the field contact Octobot type rogue decks. You know, the Burgle Rogue more than anything has always been kind of neat and cool and wacky and not necessarily hyper competitive. Don't expect that to change. I don't think any of these kind of like rogue Burgle cards are quite good enough to justify that. Like, we're not seeing like the Vendettas and Undercity Fences of the world. Double Agent I do think is quite strong. But hard to justify that over, I think, a lot of the other powerful rogue stuff that does exist already. So I wouldn't expect the actual sort of metagame position of rogue to change dramatically with any of these new cards, with the exception of, I think, the Shadowcrafter Scabs gives you sort of more power specifically in Quest Rogue first and foremost. Now time to vanish.